Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk to you about the table. And specifically what has been confirmed by ArenaNet to be on the table, and to put it more bluntly, basically what we're expecting to come up with the game into the foreseeable future. Now, what I've actually done here is grab a compilation of specific dev statements dating back up until maybe a year ago, around now, as to all the things that will be going into the game and the future of GW2. Now, notably, the first thing I'll say is they haven't actually, as far as I can find, confirmed anywhere there is going to be another expansion after Heart of Thorns. Perhaps there's been some third-party interview somewhere that I've missed, but as far as I can see, they haven't actually 100% confirmed that. But we do know a lot of things that at least can go in the game before then, and really that's more interesting and important anyway, right? Because another expansion could be 2-3 years away from now. So we'll look at some of the short-term stuff, we'll look at some of the longer-term stuff, but these are the things that the devs said that they'd add in, and hopefully I haven't missed any big features, though something in my gut says maybe I have. Alright, let's begin with PvE. The obvious thing straight away is that Living World Season 3 is going to be a thing. We're going to be getting a continuation of the story given to us free, in quotes. I mean, do we consider it free now, or do we just consider it more of our money's worth of Heart of Thorns? Whatever, we're getting Living World Season 3 in live streaming updates going into the game. It's very likely as well, though not 100% confirmed, that Living World Season 3 will bring us new maps, new masteries, and specifically as well, quite probably new stat sets too. See, with Heart of Thorns, if you've been under a rock, all the new stat sets that they added were quadruple stat sets. So before Heart of Thorns, mostly all stat types in the game just had 3 stats. You had like a major one, so Berserkers, okay? The major one was power. It gave you more power than anything else. And then it gave you less amounts of precision and ferocity sort of in equal measures. There were the odd ones that didn't fit this scheme, though, specifically when it came to like Ascended Rings, where we had the occasional 4 stat type, and in PvP you encountered these too. For example, Marauder's gear, which is kind of like Berserkers, but it's got a little bit of vitality mixed in there too. And then, of course, the big outlier, Celestial. Well, with Heart of Thorns, they really expanded on that quadruple stat type. All of the stats that they added were of this combination, and actually there are some really interesting combos they could do now, which aren't quite in the game. I think a lot of people who really like the idea of doing lots of damage and sort of high glass, bursty style play on some classes and trait setups could usurp, like Berserker or Assassin, would be the idea of a power main, ferocity main, precision minor, condition damage minor stat type. And these things could end up coming with Living World Season 3 if any of the precedent they set in Season 2 is to be followed. That being, they'll add a new map. The new map has unique skins associated with it and unique stat types, which is exactly the formula we saw them do in Heart of Thorns 2, and I think is a very valuable formula to go for. Next, you've got new raid wings. I'm not quite sure where to consider this in terms of, like, is it going to be Season 3 updates? They haven't given us any word on that. Could it be that we'll continue seeing breaks in Living World seasons as we did with Season 2, and during those breaks, that's when they drop the raid wings in? Because it seems that the raid wings are going to be like parallel story, right? Maybe somehow relevant story, but generally stories all of their own, as I hopefully have demonstrated to you guys in some of my recent videos with the Spirit Veil at least. It seems like it's going to be 3 different wings, all telling one specific story in one specific area of the world to do with a specific group of enemies that has been impacted by the death of Morgemoth and the ends of the regular story, but doesn't rely on it. And the regular story certainly won't rely on the raid story. And because of this, it seems like they can kind of go in separate with Living World. I think that's kind of the dream scenario for me, that if they have to take breaks for Living World, which I'm guessing they will, then we get the raid wings come in there. But those have been confirmed to more of them be coming out. And not just new raid wings, but new raids entirely. It's not like they're going to add Wing 2 and Wing 3 of the Spirit Veil and go, there you go, that's raids done. I think we're going to move on to the next big thing, guys. I don't think they're going to do that. I think we're going to get more random raids, maybe even raids that encompass just a single wing. As they've explained before, it's explicitly saying that they could be dropped anywhere around in the world. So that's pretty cool. As well as Living World Season 3, let's not forget something announced around this time last year, and that is Season 1 of the Living World. And already it seems like quite a juggling act for the devs to compete. When and where exactly are they going to add Living World Season 1. The best place to have had Living World Season 1 was before Heart of Thorns. So that in all those hype months leading into it, people had a lot of stuff to play, and specifically those of us who bought the game, played it for a little while, and then quit because it had no end game way back in 2012, could have played through the entire Living Worlds seasons all in one chunk. I would hazard that there's a lot of people who would have been playing Guild Wars 2 in an anticipation of Heart of Thorns if there was Living World Season 1 and 2. I think a lot of people would put off the idea of just playing Season 2 and kind of want the whole package. Now, that whole incentive, it's kind of wearing away. So what, are they going to wait until just before the next expansion to do it? Are they going to put Living World Season 3 on hold? Are they going to do it in the gap between Season 3 and Season 4? There are a lot of questions about this. The last we heard was around 9 months ago. I did a specific interview and asked, hey, are they doing it? They said, no, we're focused on Heart of Thorns for now. Well, now Heart of Thorns is out. Does that mean Season 1's coming? Are we going to leapfrog between Season 1 and Season 3 updates? So, you know, week 1, we get Season 3. Week 2, we get Season 1, then Season 3, then Season 1. I mean, what are they going to do? It's very, very difficult to know. But we do know specifically that dropping Season 1 in isn't the easiest thing in the world, even though a lot of it's already been made. Season 1 was very, very different to the way they did Season 2. Now, Season 2 unquestionably has been the better way of dropping live content into the game. But to look back, ArenaNet were really experimenting. Take Flame and Frost, okay? Many of us will just remember Flame and Frost as a small update that was us, you know, the first patch at least, as us fixing signs. Many of us lose immediately perspective of the fact that Flame and Frost was like 4 different big updates, and eventually they got bigger and we had a whole dungeon to play eventually. But the actual structuring of those updates was really peculiar and very difficult to add back in. So, for example, what you'd have is the explicit patch of fixing signs, but then in the background, randomly, without a patch going in the game, something would suddenly change, and there'd be a few more refugees that appear in a camp, and then there'd be a random body that appears somewhere in the map, and then there'd be a few more refugees that appear in the Black Citadel camp, and then people would just slowly piecemeal move around, slowly, gradually, very much like we saw they did in Guild Wars 1, the War in Kryta. And these were a lot of little updates. The question is now, they had a certain value, of course, not a great value, and one that ArenaNet still kind of do a little, like we saw with the Silver Waste vines growing, but they're not the bulk of the content anymore. And so how do you add that when you're putting in Season 1? How do you put those little nuances and those kind of truly live, living updates to the game? It's very curious, and that's just on a small level. There are huge hurdles for them to cross in terms of, like, the large open-world Zergy stuff. Think about the Scarlet Invasions, think about the Tower of Nightmares, think about the Attack on Lion's Arch. These required vast numbers of players to be playing them, and just don't work as permanent content in the game. So do they have to scale it down so they could be 5-man or even soloed? And then you've got the fact that many of the Living World individual updates never really branched into each other very well. They were random mails we'd get, and only make sense because there'd been some passage of time. There's no, like, glue that holds the whole narrative together, and that is the biggest thing that they have to build for Season 1. So there's a lot going on, not to mention how much they're balancing with the other things. So that'll be very curious to see. And then, to top it off, we of course have festivals as well. Winter's Day is the next big thing that we'll be getting in December, but then after that, there is a question of other festivals that we don't know about. Is the Jubilee ever coming back? Is Dragon Bash coming back again this year because we just killed another dragon, maybe? What are they doing with some of their other festivals? So far, it only seems like the only consistent ones are Halloween and Winter's Day, and ArenaNet have been kind of struggling with on the festival front for a long time. Their original plans to do a lot of copy-pasting the festivals, some people don't really seem to enjoy too much, even though it was perfectly okay 10 years ago. Alright, we got a couple of other things on the PvE front as well, confirmed to be changing. As well with Winter's Day, the mid-December fractals changed. Some people foolishly disappointed this wasn't in the game yet, because we're already in December. They never gave us an explicit date, but fractals are broken. We all know it. They need some serious quality of life, and it has been confirmed that that quality of life will be given to us at some point in December. Hopefully pushes them into a much better place. I personally want to see huge rebalances to the rewards. There are countless bugs that need to be fixed in terms of the rewards and the way the collections work, and actually the difficulty as well. I'd really like to see a big change to and rebalance to as well. I don't want to see it basically all get easier than it used to be right the way up till scale 70. That seems really arbitrary and just puts more focus on the whole agony resist mechanic rather than the actual difficulty of them. If the idea was that they compared to raids, they certainly don't right now. Also consider with the fractals though, just before Heart of Thorns came out, the devs did give us a post and said, hey look guys, not everything we wanted with Heart of Thorns is coming out right away. way. This included things like the legendaries not being dropped in instantly, which are, of course, now there, as well as squad UI not being dropped in instantly, which is, of course, now there. But they did say that there was a lot more they wanted to do with fractals. Remember ages ago when they were going to do an update to fractals with regard to leaderboards. Fractal leaderboards still haven't really become a thing, and they said they become a bit more ambitious with their ideas there. Is this December patch also going to give us that, or is it just going to lay the groundwork for the future? Seems like it could be a bit of a slow burner. We shall see. Moving on as well, legendaries. It was confirmed that not only is a lot of the legendary crafting that's a bit broken and weird at the moment continuing to be fixed, but we're actually getting new legendaries entirely. So the new legendaries entirely, they've given us no details on, except the fact that we're not getting underwater ones. So the ordering, the style of these weapons, whether they have precedent in lore, whether that Khalid Bulg we get at the end of the story build into one, that's all speculation, but there will be new legendaries, and it seems that we're definitely not going to be waiting for the next expansion for those. New legendaries are on the table. To go back to the legendary crafting of existing stuff, the specific things that they've said that's seriously being looked at, highest priority is blocking issues. That's basically a given no matter the video game, and has always been, you know, a high priority for ArenaNet with a lot of things. So a blocking issue is literally like, oh, there's a bug and I can't actually craft this thing. It's impossible. So those things are going to get the highest priority. But there's another thing that accidentally has been incentivized. And this is the idea that you need to complete an event to get your legendary weapon or your precursor. But that event only spawns if a prior one fails. And so it leads us to this kind of toxic, sad environment where you're asking people to fail an event, and obviously players and Guild Wars 2 just want to kind of run around, right, and do stuff without looking at local chat, and then people get very angry with each other and so on. So they're trying to make sure this doesn't happen. That was never meant to be incentivized in the first place, and that's another big thing too. And then lastly, like icons. You get flooded with so many random items through the legendary crafting. A lot of the time it's not clear whether you should keep it, whether you should sell it. Some of them don't even have flavor text. It's just a bit of a weird situation. All that stuff's getting fixed on the legendary front. All right, so that's mostly PvE confirmed, okay? And of course, when I flippantly say Living World Season 3 early, that does mean a lot of stuff. That, you know, that does mean new masteries. That means whole new maps. It means new achievements and all that stuff we got that sustained us through Living World Season 2. Hopefully it's of a higher quality than the previous season was, Season 2, but there's been no word about that specifically. But I also kind of want to talk about guilds. Now, guilds kind of are PvE, but then the other game types as well, so it kind of segues quite nicely. Guilds as well, all this stuff is on the table. Number one, new decorations, and holiday decorations at that are absolutely going to be coming with Winter's Day. A lot of people have been relying on like the cheapy Halloween decorations, like the pumpkins, to do their jumping puzzles and stuff so far, and we'll be getting a ton more of those for Winter's Day. But also with guilds, don't forget the idea of new guild halls and even potentially new buildings altogether have been stated by the devs as updates for guild halls. I'm actually very excited about the whole guild system in general, knowing they have a dedicated team that can continue to look at this kind of stuff and expand on these things. The community is in no short supply of great ideas for guild halls, and all the devs have to do is reach out with both hands and take them. They also, though, do remember a more specific comment from a while ago was the whole guild alliance kind of chat thing where you could see all your guilds discussion all at once. They did say with the announcement of this feature that this isn't their solution for huge guilds to kind of get around the limit of you know, having a guild player cap, and that something else was going to be done for those guilds, but we have no ETA on that or what that could even be, but that was something that was stated too. All right, let's have a look at PvP. Number one, the biggest thing on my mind is new PvP maps. Now, the devs don't seem to be against putting new PvP maps in, but I don't believe we've had an official statement on the idea for a very long time. I would guess that the highest priority new map to be added would be like another version of Stronghold, but how Stronghold is being treated by PvP is actually a very interesting topic. So, will we see Stronghold be in tournaments? Will it be a part of Pro League activity? Will it be something major? And they're still standing on their previous statements that they'll be looking at the way the community reacts to Stronghold. If Stronghold ends up producing the best games, the more spectatable games, the community ends up playing a lot more of that than Conquest, which they're more familiar with, then yes, Stronghold can absolutely usurp Conquest as the kind of Guild Wars 2 PvP game type, but it depends on where the community ends up being with it. So we are in an interesting position. No statements about that so far. I really have only been in Conquest, and something has been lacking for me about Stronghold. But we do have our queue preferences, and I guess ArenaNet will just be looking at the metrics, and we may get some statement about this at some point. There are going to be some changes to do with the league system. Specifically, there is a big bug that's really irritating people at the moment, where if somebody DCs from your game, it puts you, and the game concludes. Instead of the game counting it as a loss, they instead count that as a forfeit. Now, this is actually a good thing, because if it counted as a loss, you could easily lose up to 3 pips, right? Because of that loss, it would treat it as a regular game and be like, oh, you just lost flat out and you got barely any points. You suck. We're going to drop you down a lot. But there's a bug with the forfeit system at the moment, which means you still lose pips anyway. Even if you won the supposedly forfeited match. So yes, that's right. If you load into a Conquest game, somebody DCs from your team, and you still win 4v5, you're not rewarded for it. You still lose a pip. It's pretty brutal. It's a pretty sad bug, but that has been confirmed to being fixed. Very specific little thing there. Then we are confirmed as well to having quarterly balance passes. I'm including this in the PvP section. Now, yes, that does affect PvE. That affects Wild versus Wild as well. But we're including this here because it seems to be primarily aimed at PvP, even though it will have ramifications for everywhere. There, of course, are going to be new seasons added. And also, interestingly, they said that there's going to be an update that gives us more visibility on how many pips we will win or lose before the match. All right, so the way it currently works is if you go into PvP and all the guys on your team are like kind of bad players and the system sees them as lower MMR players, and you've just queued into a 5Q group of really good players on the other team, the game kind of is like, oh, it seems like one of these teams is going to lose. And because of that, it will weight things properly. If that team that they predict to lose actually ends up winning, in the most extreme scenarios, you can win 3 pips, and the good team will lose a lot of pips. But if you lose the game that you were expected to lose, it's not going to punish you very much. You might not lose any at all. And so, this is actually some really good information to have visible to us as players to know exactly what we're fighting for. And so it said there's going to be an update that gives us more visibility on those odds. That should be pretty cool. There are no plans to allow you to queue anywhere in the world. There are no stated plans to overhaul Heart of the Mist. There are no plans to add gliding or any of that kind of stuff. That's all just community speculation. Moving on, we've got Wild versus Wild. Wild versus Wild, I'm not going to spend very long on, because all we really know is that a huge Wild versus Wild rebalance is happening. In addition to all this other crap we just talked about going on with PvE, they also have a massive Wild versus Wild shake-up to do. There's a guy on Reddit who has made some very good predictions in the past. Could actually be someone with worthy information to leak, who's basically gave out some ideas of what he thinks they're going to be doing for Wild vs. Wild. And actually a long time ago, it suggested the devs an alliance idea for Wild vs. Wild, where you get a group of guilds that band together and they fight against other alliances. So rather it be based on server matchups, which cause all kinds of problems, it's instead like big alliances fighting one another in Wild vs. Wild. It's a great idea that the devs never really made any statements on, but supposedly this could be a big thing coming, as well as a legendary back piece specifically for Wild vs. Wild. But bear in mind, this is just speculation at the moment. All we know is a big change to Wild vs. Wild is coming up, and there have been various statements from various devs alluding to it. Those are the big things. Those are the big things. There's a couple of miscellaneous things that I do want to talk about as well. Number 1, Super Adventure Box. Yes, this is on the table. This is something we'll be getting. 2 big things should guide your understanding that this is coming to the game. Number 1 is that the devs never said it was going away forever. A lot of us read that when the devs told us, no, we're not working on Super Adventure Box. We're instead focusing on Season 2 of the Living World and Heart of Thorns Beyond. People took that to mean, oh, no, Super Adventure Box is never returning. It was never stated to never be coming back. That was just a community kickback. It is going to be dropped in at some point, and further evidence for this still could be occasional random things keep getting jumped into the client that seem to be related to Super Adventure Box. So do expect that to be coming as well. That, again, seems like a pretty major release for the PvE side of things, but no official statements for a long time. I did want to throw a small thing out to the APIs, which are continuingly to be developed, and browsing through the dev tracker over the past couple of months, you'll see so many of them are just specifically about the API. Like, the people working on that are absolutely doing a fantastic job, and masteries are going to be available on API. That's kind of a miscellaneous thing that will be coming. Presumably, the 64-bit client is also going to be leaving beta at some time, as well as presumably further visual effect nerfs. The devs never said that they were done with those. I know that some people complained about the aura thing, but I do still think the game needs a lot more culling away of that stuff to be more readable. And I would expect to see more, because I still don't think we're in a good place, but things are slowly getting a little bit better. Actually, a cool change as well that was confirmed a while ago is another change to the personal story. Remember that they did that big personal story fix where they re-implemented a bunch of the steps and stopped it being so hideously broken? Well, one thing from those patches still remains, and that is that some of the level assignments for late personal story steps are still like misaligned. So for example, the final step of the entire personal story before the, you go into Ara, where you fight the Sovereign Eye of Zaitan, is not a level 80 instance, it's a level 70 instance. The mission right before the end, where the final arc begins, basically, where you escort Traherne into the Zokafa catacombs, the torture tombs, and he meets with King Razor's ghost, or he tries to cleanse from there. That mission as well is also level 70. And you might think, does that really matter, Windberterish? That's a small thing. Well, it does matter when you finish the step and you only get rewarded with a level 70 reward instead of a level 81. And for some of the final instances in the entire personal story, yeah, that kind of sucks. So that was confirmed to be changed. It's somewhere on the list. And then last of all, we've been getting kind of obscure statements from the devs when it comes to ascended rings and jewelry, and it does still seem, even in game, we've got the Junlei Electrum ingot there. This one's a bit more speculative, but it does seem at some point we'll be getting ascended jewel crafting too, but no official statements on that. So there you go, guys. That, as far as I'm concerned, is the table. All right? That's several huge, sweeping, big changes across lots of the different formats of the game. A decent roadmap full of many things that are going to be added for us. And is probably what's occupying the devs' time in the immediate future. All these things, the guilds, the raids, the living world stuff, the world versus world change, the fractals change. The most stable area would seem to be PvP, it seems to me. So I'd like to end this video with a big question to you guys. Do you think the table is too big? Do you think that the table has more space for other things that, maybe you would prefer to have seen in the game? Because I do think it's really interesting just how many little things there are that have been confirmed to come, that already, to me, it seems like they got like a lot ahead of them. And I'm just kind of curious where we think we stand with that. But in any case, I hope this was a little enlightening to you guys. Hope you gleaned some cool information. I'd love to hear what you think down below. And I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.